and then I'll let you just sort of, you know, give the first topic, and then we can start. So I started
Okay,
recording.
great.
This is a Zoom meeting. It's Wednesday night, May 31st, 7 p.m. call time. We're doing this call in honor of Carrie Schulte. Thank you for instigating this call. And we're going to talk about several topics on how we can be better.
Well, gosh, thanks, Lauren. Thanks for kind of letting us all pick your brain and pick each other's brains. And it's super exciting because I think one of the things I love the most with our company and everybody involved is we're all curious to learn more, whether it's about wine or how to sell more wine and kind of contribute to whatever that needs to be contributed to. So we appreciate your time for sure, wedging us in this evening at the end of the month, especially. But I know one of the things that at my tastings and at my team's tastings, we always want more wine club members or wine society. So we would definitely like to kind of start off the conversation talking about how to get those club members really in and involved. And of course, we all know how great it is, but what are some of the things that you say that seem like it really resonates with people at your tastings?
So the thing that works for me is I make the assumption if they're going to buy wine that they're going to join the wine society. And the reason why I say that is, and what I say to people is, I don't let my friends pay retail. I want them to get the savings. So I make a custom, I take the Boisset tasting menu, and on the back I've created a custom order form. And on the back of the order form, it says, you pull one up here, it says Wine Society. It says choose one, and it has circles. It has all red, all white, or red and white. I don't say Wine Society, yes, no. I say Wine Society, pick one. Now I'm making the assumptive close that they're going to join it. So I don't give them a choice of yes or no. I say just pick one. And throughout my tasting, I give them little tidbits about the benefits of our wine society and why they'd want to be in that, and why it makes sense to, why it doesn't make sense to not do it. And why I say that is there's really not a lot of risk, right? So what's the minimum obligation? The minimum obligation is to buy 3 bottles of wine right now when you sign up. They're probably going to buy 3 anyways or more. And then 3 more at a minimum over the next year, right? You can pass on the next, take 3 bottles in 6 months from now, and then pass on the last one. That's just at a minimum. Of course, they're going to love the wine so much, they're going to probably want it every quarter, or maybe increase it like to monthly or bi-monthly, but there really is no risk for them not to do it. Why wouldn't you want to save money? So I have a pretty high, when I do tastings or when I take orders, I would say 90 to 95% of my people join the wine society. Now, why do some of them not? I have some people that their hot button is they don't want to get stuck in like an auto ship. They don't want to have their, you know, they like to be in control of their spending, and they don't want to like worry about what's coming without their control. You know, they're more control issue. So, but I don't have a lot of those happen. So I think making the assumption that they are going to join really helps me, because the language I use is, which one do you want? All red, all white, or red and white?
That's a really great tip. I never really thought of that because I do always ask. And so it does give them the option to say no. So just eliminating that and wording the rest of the you know, all the, like you said, the benefits throughout the conversation, it helps reinforce that they already are saying yes for them too.
Right, and we all know the benefits.
Really a good point.
We all know the benefits, right? 20% instant savings, and then complimentary tastings at all of our properties for you and 3 guests, and you can pass on every other shipment. And another really cool thing that I've been emphasizing recently since the change in March 1st, with the wine society is our wine society is so flexible, right? It allows you to pick and choose the wines you want. You can like, I love to receive what they send me because it's always something new. But sometimes people want to choose three of the one wine, or they want to pick less expensive wines, and they have that flexibility. They can pass. They can, increase. They can change from all red to all white. There's so much flexibility with it. And
yeah, it's really a super unique club.
We're like 26 wineries in one. They used to say 6, but I love to use the number 26 because that's how many wineries. They're not all in our portfolio, but I still say that. Fire a few of your other wine clubs and just do Boisset.
Yeah, it'll save you money in the long run for all that variety and shipping fees for every different winery. And another good point too is, even though I know some people in certain states can't receive the French wines themselves in their wine club, but they may be able to send that gift to somebody else, a business partner out of state, or they still have access to wines throughout our full portfolio, even though their personal shipments are limited to certain wines because of the state they're in. But to have access to not just wines from California, but from all over the place is really super unique. I mean, you don't come across that in other wineries. So lots and lots of perks that we have. But yeah, just eliminating the option to opt out, making it hard to say no to it is such a cool approach.
Yeah.
Lauren,
yes.
The form that you created, is that something we can find on the Boisset Facebook document area, or is it you could send to us?
I'd be happy to do either. Send it to you. I have it. They're custom. Okay, so I have my graphic artist create them for me, and as the flights change, they need to be changed, right? Because the wines and the prices are listed there. And it's not a editable. She does it in one of those graphic programs. Forgot the name of it, but I'm not a graphics artist myself, so I'm fortunate to have someone like that works for me, and she does my menus for me. So yeah, I have them right now with the standard flights, Classic, California, and Reserve. And when I do custom menus, I just have her just do those. But I'd be happy to share the ones I have.
Thank you so much.
And it'd be neat to see, even though if people wanted to customize to what fits for them, in that files document on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and then another thing that I've been doing, my other business, my online fashion business is struggling, which is why I'm really trying to grow my wine business. I'm starting to offer my graphic artist at a fee. So for $60, I'm offering custom menus, front and back, anything you want. If you're doing a wine dinner or you want a custom flight of wines, I'm offering her services to do a custom menu. FYI.
Okay, good to know.
I'm just covering her costs.
That's perfect.
So I think the next the next sort of question was you're having a tasting at home or wherever,
and Lauren, I'm just going to mute real quick. I've got to handle a quick kid issue. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm just going to mute real quick.
Yep.
Okay.
So the question that I heard was you're having a tasting, and some of your guests like some wines that aren't on that menu. Maybe maybe you're serving an oaked Chardonnay and they only like unoaked Chardonnay, and it really helps to know our collection. I've been fortunate enough to try a lot of the wines through so many different events. I think I probably had close to 75 of our almost 100 wines, and it really helps to know the portfolio. so that you could make recommendations. You can sell based on your knowledge. And when you're passionate and love a wine so much, you could sort of share it. Another thing that I've really found useful is the Coravin. I had two people over that really liked the Rumbauer Chardonnay, which is I've never had Rumbauer, but I hear it's very similar to our LVE Chard, which is 100% French oak, which is one of my favorite Chards. But I've sold that just based on hearing someone's flavor profile. Has anybody else had that scenario where someone asked for a wine that you weren't serving? They said, I want, do you have this? Do you have that?
I just did a rosé tasting, poured at a boutique, and I actually brought a couple extra bottles with me. I brought a bottle of the Sheriff, and somebody had asked if I had any red. It was pretty much towards the end of the evening, and it was a woman I knew. And I said, oh, by the way, I do. I brought a bottle of red, and I opened it, and she ended up joining the Wine Society because of the red.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sheriff is a winner.
I know. Pulls people in.
Another one that I really fall in love with at retreat was the Leaf Meritage, and I did it on a custom flight, and now that it's in the reserve flight, that people are really loving that wine.
I am doing that reserve tasting this weekend, but I bought the flight before the Sparkling Shiraz, so it's the JCB 24, which I'm happy about. But so I have a question. The woman, it was a donation flight that I did for a silent auction, and the couple that bought it, she works for Mondavi, and so up in Napa. So I'm trying to figure out how to pull her. She knows about Jean Charles, and she knows he owns their house and everything, but how to like pull her into Boisset, since she works for Mondavi.
That's a tough one. I mean, it's all about getting her to try some wines that she likes. It's hard to not like our wines.
Well, especially the reserve flight. It's delicious.
Yeah, you know, now that it has like the 11 and the Leaf, and it's got 4 reds. You know, one Chardonnay and 4 reds.
Yeah, and that's
a great flight Pinot right now.
Yeah, that estate Pinot is great.
The Estate Pinot and the number 11 is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping she has a dozen people. So I'm hoping that I can get some wine club members out of their group.
Well, good luck with that. That sounds like an exciting evening.
Yeah, I hope so. Carrie and I poured at the event, and so the husband must have come up about 2 bottles worth of Cabernet, requesting more cabs. So hoping that that their friends are equally as interested in that type of wine.
My wife and I are hosting a reserve tasting Saturday night at our home.
Oh, nice. I actually bought 2 of those flights when they were on sale. So I'm going to self-host at the house with the second flight.
Nice.
Yeah. See if I can get some ambassadors.
Nice. Where do you live?
In Ripon with Carrie. We live about a mile apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Carrie back on? Let's see if I can find the next question in her list here. Well, she mentioned about upselling. I'm not really sure exactly what she's talking about, but what I often do is I tell people that when I buy wine, I look at shipping costs, and your best price points for shipping is buying 6 and 12 bottles. If I'm gonna, it doesn't make sense to ship, pay $20 to ship 2 bottles. if you do the math and you spread that over 6 bottles, you're paying a lot less per bottle for shipping. So when I buy my wine, I always buy it in increments of 6 and 12. I tell my customers that, and I often get them to increase what they're buying. So if they were going to buy just 3 bottles or 4 bottles, I get them to buy 6 bottles. And I get them to see the rationale there. And in a way, that's upselling, but I'm trying to show them the rationale of saving money with their how they're allocating their shipping dollars. And I don't know what else Carrie wanted to talk about. I'm hoping she'll get back on this call. Does anybody else have any questions or topics they want to talk about?
How do you get your new ambassadors excited and motivated to start actually like getting out there and doing things? Because I have 4 ambassadors under me, but none of them are like barn burners.
Well, I am in the same situation. I have a lot of people, but you know, I think they always say that it's like a 20% rule or something, or you know, 10 or 20% are going to actually end up working the business. What I found useful is including them in events. I do a lot of big events, and I just invite them to come and pour and be there and be in the mix and be involved. And I think by them being there and seeing the excitement and drinking the wine and getting exposed really helps.
Okay.
I try to integrate them in what I'm doing. And that certainly helped me, like at the end of last year, to promote to senior director. I'm kind of in the same situation now. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to get everybody in the groove.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's. I don't always like to use the word sales, and what we learned at retreat was it's more about sharing than selling. And that's true. The wine really speaks for itself. You just have to pour it in the glass, right? And
right.
People have to try it. I'm amazed at how many people come in the door to our events and they say they're only a red wine drinker, and they do not like white wines, and we serve them a few white wines, and they start liking white wine. And that happened to me too, because before I started with Boisset, I only liked red. My wife liked white and sparklings, and now I love it all.
Yeah, I think the same is true with the rosé, because I've had that reaction when the rosés were in the flights, and people were like, "Oh, they always associate it to Sutter Home," I think, and so they'll be like, "Oh, I don't care for rosé," and as soon as they drink it, they're like, "Oh, this is not like any other rosé I've ever had."
Yeah, that Deloach Pinot Rosé and the number 5 are amazing.
I agree.
What do you do to get the sweet wine drinkers on board?
Sweet wine. Well, I actually have had a few of those. I think you have to sort of wean them. I think it's a matter of what they've been exposed to. It's just like drinking sugary drinks. If you're used to drinking even your coffee and your tea, if you put a lot of sugar in it, it's really hard to drink it plain. I know that from experience. But I learned, like with tea, my wife and I drink green tea now in the mornings. I really appreciate it without any sweetener in it at all. I think it's the same thing with wine. You have to just expose them to other wines. And it's just a personal preference. I think it will happen over time. If their flavor, their taste buds are just wanting the sugar, and that's what they're used to, it's not going to be an immediate transition. But if they, if you expose them after a few experiences or events to our wines, and maybe start them with some of the sweeter wines, like the Buena Vista Riesling. That's a lovely wine. I really like that. It's a really great price point at $16. Maybe starting them on some of the sparklings, some of the sweeter sparklings, like the Louis Bouillot, the Rosé, or the 24. Anybody else have any suggestions or run into that?
So I'm sorry, this is Tracy from Kansas. I'm a new ambassador. I think I just finished my first 30 days. So I have a lot of people who just like the sweet wines. And I know that once they taste, a more powerful wine, eventually they'll get there. So for those people, should I just go ahead and get a couple of bottles of Riesling and add it to the portfolio or the tasting that I'm doing?
Yeah, maybe if that's what they like, maybe you're doing a flight, like say the Classic or the California, and there's nothing really sweet in there. Maybe if you have a Riesling there just to, sort of just to have something for them, but have the other wines, I think they will come around.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe also, I think like the Deloach Pinot Rosé, I love that. I mean, it's not sweet, but it's just so light and refreshing. I think a sweet wine person would probably enjoy that.
I agree.
Okay.
This is Trish.
Hi,
And
you
the
hear
other
me?
wine that I found people with a taste for the sweet was the Frenchy Frenchington blend, because the back end of it has a almost sweet finish.
Yeah, we served that Frenchington at Wine, Women, and Shoes in Santa Monica, and it was my first time having it. I only had the Coronation before, but those are two beautiful red blends.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Lisbeth. When before we got on the call, you shared what you did with your ambassador program and trying to get new ambassadors, and you suggested that you after the fourth wine, you then go into your basic advantages of being an ambassador. So when you're doing your tasting, how do you transition your guests from just tasting? Because I get a lot of nods that they like the wines. I agree with you there. But then I also seem to get some objection to the cost, the shipping, and I'd like to know your tips to overcome those.
So is this a two-part question? It's like, how do you transition in your opportunity meeting from the tasting to the ambassador to the meeting part? And then how do you deal with objections of them buying, maybe joining the wine society or buying wine?
Yeah, well, let me see if I can rephrase this. My question is when I totally understand what you do when you do your ambassador thing and you transition to the benefits of the ambassador, being an ambassador. So I get that. Where I'm struggling is when I am tasting my guests or sharing my wine with my guests, I'll get a lot of nods that they like what they're drinking, they're enjoying what they're tasting. But then I find it difficult to transition those yeses as far as taste into yeses on the paper to get the order. And so that's my question. How do you actually get the order?
Well, so that's a really good point. I did a tasting a couple weekends ago for one of my ambassadors. She was sick, so I went and did it for her. There were 6 guests. We did the California flight. No one ordered. 0 orders.
Whoa.
You know, sometimes it happens. You really, our job is to share. The wine's going to sell itself. Yeah, you're going to have to maybe nudge or nod or prod them a little bit. You know, be suggestive. If they're hesitant, you know, find out what's the stumbling block, what's holding them back. If they don't have money, they don't have money. I mean, you can't force them, right? Maybe they're into buying $2 Chuck. You know, that's the Trader Joe's $2 wine. You just, you know, if you get someone who's always buying $2 and $5 wines, they're not going to be our customer.
Right.
By the way, before I started with Boisset, my limit was I was buying $10 and $15 wines. That was kind of where I felt comfortable. I splurged one time and bought a $35 wine, but I never thought I'd be buying wines, you know, like I am today with, you know, it's an appreciation. It's not going to be for everybody, and everybody is in a different financial situation.
Well, thank you. That was helpful.
I think the other thing too you could do maybe is to suggest that they combine their order so that they can split shipping.
I heard someone mention that. Yeah, you get a couple people. One person has to take the financial, like actually do the order, and then someone else can pay them back. But then they're sharing on the shipping. Yeah, that's one way around it. But I heard people were trying to say, how do I get them to prevent doing that? Right, because you want everyone to be a customer.
True, but you could also have the Let's Be Friends, like Carrie came up with the Let's Be Friends form. So everybody at the tasting can fill it out and you can send that, or you can input them as a customer. So you do have their info.
I have another question. Do you on a regular basis handle your customers' wine society orders?
When you say handle, you mean call them and make sure you know what they want to get, or make sure they know it's coming, like check in with them?
Yes.
Well, I do to some extent. It's hard to you know touch base with all of them. Now that they're being spread out, it's going to make that easier. And now that they're sending this email in advance, like a couple weeks, saying, "Hey, here's a heads up. Your order is going to bill on this date." And now the ambassador gets a copy of that email. I got one today for one that's going to bill, I think, in a couple of weeks. That's going to be really helpful for us as a tool. When they were all shipping in on the same day, and you have, you know, 60, 70 wine society members, that's a big challenge. But it's a good idea to touch bases with them. The times that I do, sometimes you hear bad news, like they want to quit. That's my fear. But I've also gotten where they say they want to increase. They want to add some wine to the order. And now with the wine society, there's that flexibility.
Yeah, I love that.
I think the more you have a touch point with your customer, the more communication, the better. The more you can stay in touch with them. It's just like any, you know, customer business and customer relationship. It's that hand holding, or that just that they feel like, you know, you're taking care of them.
Agreed.
Is there anything other than the ambassador meeting that you have once a month that you also do on a regular basis? I mean, that seemed to be something that you did pretty consistently.
Well, we do have a meeting every month. Michonne has one every month, first Sunday of the month. Cassandra and I seem to do it the third Thursday of every month, sometimes Wednesday. But we're consistent about the meetings. We're consistent about the guests that come, and I think that's what keeps our pipeline full. But our other meetings, well, like, they're announcing the Marnie's going to travel around to some major cities, and it's going to be part training and part, I think, business opportunity. So corporate does those periodically, where Melissa, Catherine, they travel around the country to major cities. And you probably, if you listen to the ambassador call, you'll see some upcoming dates that just got announced.
This is Lorianne. I have another question for you in regards to joint tastings with other direct sales companies. For example, Arbonne, Ruby Ribbon, perhaps your company that's online, anyone that wouldn't be in direct competition, but it's definitely the same people or have the same interests in all of those. Have you done any of those?
That is actually how I got involved in Boisset. My wife sells Arbonne. Cassandra sells Arbonne, and Cassandra was at my home and saw my wine cellar, and knew I was driving for Uber, and my wife wasn't happy with that. She knew I was needing to make some extra income, and she approached me. That's how I actually got involved. My wife used to do, it's called Lips and Libations. Lips meaning lipstick, and libations meaning Boisset wine. So Cassandra would come and pour Boisset wines, and they would play with makeup. So those kind of collaborations, I think, are great, right? Because you can have the same crowd and maybe have sort of two products that aren't, like you said, competing products.
So when you do have those joint ventures to really produce the sales, is it effective? Because people have to split their little stash of whatever money they have discretionary towards all the different products that are being presented.
In my experience, those haven't been that productive. Like they were really an Arbonne event, so they would sell mostly Arbonne products. Cassandra sold a few bottles of wine. And recently my wife did she hosted a jewelry party for a lady, and she sold, and I poured some sparkling, and the food and wine were there just as a nicety for the guests, but the only thing they bought was jewelry. So I mean, it could work, but
it's more exposure and visibility. You think? Yeah. I also wanted to ask, you mentioned Wine, Women, and Shoes earlier in Santa Barbara. We used to host Wine, Women, and Shoes here when I'm an event planner, and I was involved with that at one time. How does that work with, I didn't realize Boisset was connected with Wine, Women, and Shoes.
So I did the one in Santa Monica. I was just helping pour. Cassandra needed help. But
okay.
I just did Bakersfield. I don't think they had one in Santa Barbara, but yes, Boisset at the corporate level set these up and provides the wine, and then they assign people around different cities to work them.
Okay.
This is Lisbeth. I have to run now, but I want to say thank you very much for your time and for sharing your knowledge. It was helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess Carrie never got back on the call, so I did record it, and I will post this. And I hope it was helpful for everybody, and I'm flattered to be asked and happy to help if I can.
Thank you very much.
Everyone have a good evening.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Close the month strong.
Thank you.